Hi Julia, did you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role?
Yes, so my name's Julia and I'm a debt and bankruptcy lawyer, generalist disputes and investigations lawyer, but I do a lot of debt bankruptcy work and I'm a volunteer at The Wire.
Great, thank you. So for many people we engage with, financial hardship often sits within the context of family violence and financial abuse. How does family violence present in the cases that you deal with?
Yeah, so financial abuse, it sometimes occurs when someone incurs debt in someone else's name. So that might be a partner and they don't know that they've signed their partner has signed up for a credit card, and it could be in their partner or wife's name, for instance.
Mm.
So that's one occurrence. And then also sometimes people use a different identity to rack up debt on a credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that situation, what legal protections are available in Australia for women experiencing financial abuse as part of family violence?
Yeah, so people are protected under the law, and this is both state and federal laws. So we have the Family Law Act 1975, and then the Victorian law is the Family Violence Act 2008.
And in terms of how do you think intersecting forms of disadvantage such as language barriers, disability, migration status, gender identity, for example, how does this affect access to debt and bankruptcy support?
Yeah, so debt and bankruptcy can be a difficult area to navigate with so many different moving parts, and every individual situation is so different. So I think people who are of multicultural backgrounds or have a disability do face barriers in accessing information. But I think a good place to start would be the National Debt Helpline, and they have interpreters. So you can ask questions or gain advice that way. It's free and there's interpreters. But if someone's served with a legal notice, and I find this in my work, if they have English as a second language, they don't understand what this notice is, but it is very serious. So if you're served with a legal notice, you must get legal advice.
Yeah. And are there free supports in terms of gaining some legal advice if you were served a legal notice?
Yeah, so Victoria Legal Aid is a wonderful organisation. They give a lot of, it's all free legal advice. And a lot of law firms do pro bono work as well. But the first place to access this advice is Victorian Legal Aid, and then they can refer that out to other firms. So there's lots of support there.
Yeah. What should people be aware of when they're signing up for credit or a loan?
So credit and a loan is a legally binding contract. So some things that you should note is that when you're signing up for a loan or contract, there'll be an interest rate, and this interest rate is usually between 16 to, it can be as high as 25%. So that means that if you default on making your monthly payment, then you'll have to pay that interest rate, which could be 25% of the amount you're owing. So if that's $100 that you've spent on the credit card, you could be paying $25 interest on that amount. So it's something to be aware of, and reading the contract terms is really important. If you don't fully understand the contract terms, they're not meant to be easy. They can be really convoluted. Then getting some some translation services, the National Debt Helpline can help with that.
Yeah.
But understanding the gravity of signing up for these contracts.
Yeah, definitely. If bankruptcy is the only option for somebody, what are some legal rights or protections if you do have to file for bankruptcy?
In Australia, you have both legal rights and responsibilities under the Bankruptcy Act 1966. So one way to stay out of a bankruptcy situation is to be really informed about what debt situation you're in. So knowing where your debts are. and signing and understanding what you're signing up for when you're taking on that debt. So it's being really aware of what is this loan, what is this contract, asking the right questions, or getting the support if you need.
Yeah, sounds like being really well informed about what you're actually signing before committing. Yeah. Are there any risks or long-term consequences of bankruptcy people should be aware of?
Yes, so declaring bankruptcy can affect your credit rating, so that means your ability to sign up for, take on more debt in the future. Maybe if you come out of a situation where you feel that you can manage your debt, you might want to take on a loan if you have that cash flow incoming, but it can affect your ability to take on a loan in the future. Also, there are some restrictions to certain licenses. If you want to be a company director or accounting license or a lawyer, your bankruptcy, having declared bankruptcy can affect your license. And employers might ask you to declare that, and that might be, embarrassing or something you don't want to declare.
Yeah, sounds like it's really restricting your options in the long term. It's often a belief that bankruptcy is a way out and a kind of reset or lifeline, but it's not always that simple, is it?
No. There's a lot of things that we have to be aware of.
Thanks, Julia.